Hi everyone. So if you're watching this video, most likely you want to learn how to cover a vintage book cover with fabric or some kind of a book cloth to cover up the original design and make a journal. So we're going to show you that today. So the first thing that you need is a book cover. I just grabbed one. You can purchase these in packs of 5 in our online storefront. Oops, I just bumped the camera. Or if you have one at home, you can do that. You're also going to need some type of something to cover it with, whether it's something that you purchase through our shop, one of our book cloths or coordinated cloths, fabrics or papers or anything like that. You're going to need something to cover it with. So what I'm going to use today is one of our decorative cloths that we sell in the shop. So I've got that. You are also going to need Mod Podge. I've got that and a brush to put it on. And then you will also need something, whether it's a credit card or something, to kind of get you into the different creases when we're covering it. So, and then lastly, you will need something to add on the back side, and I will show you that once we get to it. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is I always start with the cover, and then I always start by gluing down the spine first. I want to make sure that spine is tight, and I want to make sure whatever cloth, fabric, paper that I'm using is going to get into those creases there. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. The particular cloth that I'm using, it doesn't have like a center, but I know some of them, like if they have lines or whatever, you want to kind of line that up before you go ahead and start putting stuff down. So also something to keep in mind when you're putting in on your Mod Podge is how thick you're putting it on and how thin the particular fabric or cloth that you're using is, so that it doesn't soak through. I kind of go thick enough so that I know it's going to stick really well, but I also make sure I don't have any like really big clumps or anything. And then I also make sure like I don't have a ton sitting in that crease, because that will soak through too. So you'll notice that I just put Mod Podge on the center, and I'm going to go ahead and line up my cloth, and I'm going to use your credit card or whatever you've got to kind of get your fabric or cloth kind of in that seam, and do the same thing for the other side. And I probably should have gone a little bit thicker on my Mod Podge. It would have started sticking a little bit better. But you'll notice that I'm just kind of working into that, and I'm using my fingers on the actual spine as we go to get it to stick. Just like that. And we're going to be sewing in our paper into the spine. So making sure you've got a good, clear opening for the spine is important. So it's starting to stick down. It looks pretty smooth. And it is. And we're going to wrap this around the edge. So if you kind of have some spots that you don't feel have stuck down really good, you can go ahead and hit those later when we go ahead and finish the rest. So now I'm going to do each side, and I just kind of pull back my cloth and then put Mod Podge in there. Mod Podge. I always struggle saying it. And again, I'm going on thick enough to make sure we get a good adherence, but I don't want any big clumps. I'm using an old brush, so I'm getting some dried glue on there. I'll make sure I get that off, otherwise it'll cause a bump in the fabric. And just like that. And then go ahead and smooth out this side. Making sure you get those edges good. that. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. It's time for a new Mod Podge brush. I think this one is on its last leg. I always just wrap them, oops, bumped it again. I always just wrap them up so that I can save on any waste, but every once in a while you gotta switch it out. All right, so, and then go ahead and smooth that down, making sure you don't have any wrinkles, and all the way to the edge. All right, so we've got our cover adhered to the front. We're gonna go ahead and flip it over. And this is what it looks like. And we are gonna trim about 1 inch all the way around and leave 1 inch of extra that we're gonna use to fold over. And of course, I always keep my fabric scraps. You can use them for tabs or making embellishments in your journal. So, trim this side up. Okay. Everyone does their covers different. If you've watched other videos and they do it a little different, or you have a way that you like to do your corners, this is just the particular way that I like to do them, but I know everyone is a little bit different. So this is not a hard and fast rule. I do a dab of Mod Podge on there, and then I just go ahead and fold the corner in, just like that. I'm going to repeat that process for all 4 corners. Making sure it's, I'm making sure that this corner is tight, okay? Just like that. Do this side. And I'm kind of holding all of them just because I like to work fast. That one just popped up on me. Working too fast. All right, and then this corner. So corners first, and you're folding them in, just like that. And don't worry if they're even, because they're gonna get, it's all gonna get covered up here by the whatever piece of paper or fabric that you chose for the inside. All right, once those corners are down, then we're gonna go ahead and do Mod Podge all the way along the edge, making sure I'm getting it in that spine good, because we wanna make sure that crease is good. Just like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and fold that over. And holding it down, just like that. Oh, my corner popped open. That's what I get for trying to go so fast. I just hate it when videos are super long and boring. So I try to do it as quickly as possible. So I am actually going to get a binder clip, and we're just gonna clip these so we can move on. And keep working. Just like that. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing for the top. And I go a little bit thicker on the inside. It doesn't really matter if it soaks through. This particular cloth, it won't soak through anyways, but it just makes it dry faster if you go a little thicker. And I'm just gonna hold those down. And again, you can use a clip. Just like that. And then just making sure everything is, especially right here by the spine, it's going to get the most wear and tear when you're opening and closing. So you just want to make sure that's on there good. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and do the sides. And it's going to be the same process. And Mod Podge along the edge. And then we're gonna fold it in just like that. There is like bookbinding tools and everything with like a corner thing, and you can get as fancy as you want when you're doing it. I tend to just use my hands and this technique. So it just kind of depends on how much money you want to spend on supplies and stuff, and if you find it helpful to use those supplies. All right, and then I go ahead and I round that corner, and I'll clip that, and I'm gonna round that corner, and then I'll clip that while that dries. Okay, same process for over here. And we're pulling that tight so that there's no bubbles along the edge. Just like that. Holding it down. And then we'll go ahead and clip these while I'm gonna talk to you about the inside. Okay, so you've got all of that. Sometimes the covers are really pretty on the inside and you want to keep that. You might want to do a different technique, but because this is always going to show when you're doing it this way, we always cover it with some type of a fabric. So I had this coffee dyed fabric that I was going to use. I think I actually might use the gray side instead of the pattern side. It just goes better with the look of the thing. And so you'll notice that I just kind of I tore it so that I've got this frayed edge there. And whenever you're tearing fabric, you do a snip on the edge and then you tear it, and then it'll tear along the weave of the fabric, and it should be a straight line. So I just kind of held my fabric up to the book and kind of just eyeballed the measurement. So I've got that, and so you'll notice that it's going to nicely cover the gross spine here, and it's going to cover any of the edges once we get it on. So again, same thing. So I'm laying the fabric kind of where I want it positioned, and I am going to start in the middle. So I just kind of fold it over, and then I'm going to put my Mod Podge on the middle and making sure we're getting all of those creases. And I'm going to get kind of in there really good, but not too much because this doesn't have the same thickness as the cover that I did. So I don't want it to necessarily soak through. If it does, this is more of a rustic style journal anyways, so I don't think it would really necessarily matter. And so you'll see I'm getting the creases into the spine so that when we open and close our journal, those creases still work really good. and they're going to be strong enough to handle the opening and closing. All right. And then same as what we did on the front, we're going to do it one side and then the other side. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull my clips off. So those are going to get in my way. So we have a lot of different fabrics, vintage fabrics, and different cloths and decorative cloths that we coordinate in the shop. And every time you purchase one, then you get a QR code that links you back to this video so that you know how to make it. We also have videos of how to make soft cover journals, how to sew in your signatures. All of that is available on our YouTube as well. So we sell every part of making your own journal, but we also make sure that we give you the guidance and the tutorials and stuff to be able to use the supplies that you buy from us. If you already have a ton of supplies at home, this is also really helpful. You can use the stuff that you've already got and just follow along with the videos and cut your own covers and find your own fabrics. We just like to make it as easy as possible to be able to use vintage stuff or scraps in your journal. So there is that. All right, so now we have the cover done. I'm just making sure we got the crease really good. I'm gonna flip it back over, make sure everything looks good on this side. And there is our cover. So whatever cloth you're using, you can take an old book cover and make it into a new journal cover. And then so pick your papers and then sew in your signatures. If you don't know how to sew in your signatures, check out our other videos and you'll have a tutorial on how to sew those in. So I hope you guys enjoyed.